It's the final word daily, the England-New Zealand test match from Lord's Day 1. I'm Geoff Lemon, and Adam Collins is the other guy. He's at Lord's, and he is going to tell you all about what happened on day 1 in 30 seconds or less.
I am. What a great day to have crowds back here at Lord's, and they were treated to a wonderful display from a man on debut, Devon Conway, 136 not out at the close of play. He led New Zealand to 246 for 3 at the close. After 86 overs, England didn't get all their overs in, playing 4 fast bowlers. We'll come back to that. 1 wicket in the first session, 2 in the second, in quite a tight contest between bat and ball, but New Zealand took it away in the couple of hours until the close, adding 102 runs without losing a further wicket. Conway had Nichols by his side, nearing 50. They're in a very good position.
Very, very good position. I like this for Devon Conway, first of all, because he really sounds like a country music star, just by name alone. And I really enjoyed his work in the recent T20 series against Australia when they went over to New Zealand. He was dynamic. He was that sort of proper, top order player who could be reliable, see them through, but also had fireworks in his kit bag. But then what we saw him do today was play an innings of great temperament, great restraint. I barely remember a shot that he played, and I watched the whole thing. He wasn't going after boundaries. He hit 10 fours in his first 100 runs, and wasn't ever going after the bowling, but was content to make them come to him. Yeah,
and I like the way that it's interesting you saw it that way. He did play assertively off the front foot. Pretty much when it was up in his half, he was very happy playing down the ground, but not smashing it down the ground. I think that was the distinction.
Yeah.
He looks ready-made for Test cricket, doesn't he? Age 29, came over from South Africa, did the qualification process with New Zealand. He averages something like 77 or something like that in his last 36 first-class games, so we shouldn't be surprised that New Zealand made the bold call to leave out Blundell, bring in Conway for his debut at Lord's here, the start of such an important series. But yeah, down the ground he was fantastic, and really that white ball foundation allows him to play the type of shot that took him to 3 figures. The flamingo, the back leg up, clipping behind square, it nearly went for 6. What a way to do it at Lord's. I think just the 6th man to bring up 100 on debut at this grand old ground, and yeah, a day he'll never forget.
Yeah, 6 have done it overall. Harry Graham back in 1893 was the first of the lot, a dashing player of a couple of centuries ago. Andrew Strauss did it more recently than that, and Matt Pryor, but Conway's got the highest score of the lot, went past Sourav Ganguly's score of 131 just before stumps. So it was an innings where he just showed patience and restraint. So that he had Broad and Anderson starting off against him, which was, that was quite a question before the test match as to whether those two would be in harness together in the first test, and they were. And they were bowling beautifully, particularly early on with the new ball. Anderson swinging it more than Broad, Broad just nagging away, particularly round the wicket to the left-handers. And Conway, it was as you said, he never went after a delivery. All of his drives were 3/4 drives. There was never a big follow-through, never a big backswing. And so the boundaries he hit were just timing. He never lost control by trying to go too aggressively at the ball.
Yeah, and this is a bit of a strange one, but I think he was actually quite well served by not facing a ball for a quarter of an hour. He didn't face a ball in the first 3 overs because Latham took a single on the final ball of the first and second over. In fact, Andrew Sampson, the statistician from TMS, one of the best, if not the best in the world, he calculated for me that it was the longest a debutant has waited at the non-striker's end opening the batting before facing a ball. And I don't know why, but it just felt like that gave it, when he did face a ball, there wasn't as much attention on him. And look, Geoff, we spent a lot of time during the India series against England and against Australia talking about Rishabh Pant blending the best of white ball cricket with red ball cricket. And I like the fact that he scored so many runs with that steer behind point. That's essentially a white ball shot. That's your glide down to third man to get the ball ticking in the first 10 overs. He played that expertly. He had some trouble against the short ball early on. Mark Wood bowled the fastest spell for England at home since records were kept by CricViz in 2006. He had 1 over where every delivery was above 94 mile an hour. 2 of those balls actually hit him deep in the crease, but yet after lunch he found a way to take on Wood's short ball, both ducking it and pulling it in front of square. So he had to adapt, he had to adjust, had to get through some really good bowling from Anderson and Broad early on, and here he is, red ink next to his name, the 109th player to make 100 on debut, the 12th for New Zealand. What a day.
That was the bit that stood out in the innings most of all for me, was the pull shot for 4
right
off Mark Wood. After he'd been hit a couple of times, it was as though Conway had to respond in that moment. He had to prove that he wasn't dubious against the short ball. Because if they thought that was going to be a weakness, then they would have just bombarded him from that point on. So he did take it on pretty early in the piece, and they kind of backed off on the bouncer after that because he'd shown that he could handle himself. I know it was only one shot, but the authority with which he put that one away, he pulled a boundary off Stuart Broad after that as well, and then got another one away off Wood much later in the day. But just that first boundary on the pull shot rather, felt like it was really important against Wood, who was bowling such heat.
Yeah, and there was actually one moment where Wood, Root, Anderson and Broad consulted each other and they entirely changed the approach. So Wood was going around the wicket to him, trying to bowl short, and we're going to have to sack this off. It's simply not working. What was working early on wasn't working later. And the other bowler he had to get through was Ollie Robinson. We won't deal.
Who also had problems around the wicket.
Yeah, we won't deal with all the Ollie Robinson off-field stuff at the moment to do with his social media accounts. That's for another day. We'll have a conversation about that later. But I mean, Robinson looked a handful. He looks like Josh Hazlewood when he first entered the scene, which we should expect given how much we've seen him dominate for Sussex over the last couple of years. He's got a fantastic record, but got the first wicket to get England going with Latham chopping on. Got the second wicket, which was an absolutely delightful delivery to Ross Taylor, and they were setting him up for leg before. Between times, Kane Williamson falls via a shot, Geoff, which was pretty interesting the way that Anderson got him out, because we talk about Williamson defending so late and almost defending down to almost third man by default with soft hands, but that he played it so soft and so late that it ricocheted onto his middle stump. So an unfortunate way for the New Zealand captain to go, but it was push and pull, and meanwhile Conway's up the other end having to keep things together, because they lose another one there. If Nichols or he fall there with how tidily England were bowling after lunch, and the whole thing could fall apart very quickly after a pretty good start. So he was challenged and tested a number of times, and very much came out on top.
And Nichols important as well, given that Roscoe Taylor looked pretty uncomfortable out there for most of the time. It just wasn't fluent, didn't seem to have any rhythm whatsoever, but Nichols came in and played really calmly. What did you make of England's selection, where they've gone in with the four quicks? They've got Joe Root being their spinner. He bowled 12 overs on the first day. I hadn't actually paid attention to the 11 when it came up on the screen. So I'd seen Broad and Anderson and bowl, and then Robinson. And then Mark Wood came on. I was like, what the hell is Mark Wood doing there? Where did he come
from? Super sub.
Like, have they smuggled the 12th man onto the field? What's going on here? And then realised that actually picked four quicks. I just assumed that there would have been a specialist spinner in there. But it doesn't seem like the worst move, given that spin hasn't played a big part at Lords for a while.
Yeah, look, I've watched loads of cricket here at Lords this year, watching Middlesex play, and spin hasn't been a major role so far. So on paper, I understand why they did it. But I think they missed a trick when you look at what happened at the other end of the day. 86 overs in, which meant they only got 6 overs in with the second new ball, which that's what, I mean, if you're playing four quicks, you want to take full advantage with the second new ball later in the day, and they lost that because of over rates, and that's always the risk. So not playing Jack Leach, who was England's leading bowler through the winter in India, especially taking 30 wickets in that series. They backed in Joe Root. Shaw, Wood bowled fast and well. Robinson bowled delightfully on his first day in Test cricket. Broad was frugal. Anderson did almost everything right, with the exception of one small spell between lunch and tea when he got a bit leg side. But you feel as though with the balance, you need to find a way to, I don't know how they do it, but they need to find a way to have more urgency to make sure they don't fall over short, because that's when they miss out in a situation like that.
All right, what we like to do on this show is look at who's the player of the day. It's going to be really hard to guess that one. And what moment goes in the Final Word Hall of Fame. We're going to do that after the very shortest ad break in the world from our mates at Woodstock Cricket.
Woodstock Cricket, home of the finest handmade cricket bats and soft goods. Visit either our showroom or workshop and experience the magic for yourselves. For bookings, contact info@woodstockcricket.co.uk.
It's the Final Word Daily with Geoff Lemon and Adam Collins. The player of the day, just absolutely left field that it's the guy who made 100 on debut. Because, look, it wasn't a hugely packed day. It was a sedate sort of day one. It was the kind of day one that has people mumbling, oh, good proper Test cricket.
Well, it was good proper Test cricket, and he looks built to play it, doesn't he? I mentioned his first-class record before. This shouldn't be a surprise that he's been picked to play here today. the composure he showed throughout, the way he brought up his century, it really was the complete package. There was comparisons to Kevin Peterson on social media. I saw Ben Jones, our friend from CricViz, actually saying it was more Mike Hussey in the way that he did it. But I suppose being a bit of a journeyman means that he's arrived at Lords and he's not been daunted at any stage, and it means that, yeah, they've really found one here, and they've got 2 massive test matches after this. It could be the making not only of him, but could be the finishing touch, I should say, of this side as they build towards the World Test Championship final.
Yeah, they've often seemed short maybe one really quality batsman, and if they're able to fill that gap, then it'll take them a long way. Now, as for the Hall of Fame, anyone who's listened to the show for a while will know that, Adam, one of your favourite phrases for someone doing something easily is that they did it with a leg in the air. And that's all I thought of today when Devon Conway brought up his 100, is he literally did it with a leg in the air.
He did.
He got the full flamingo, the Ashton Agar, Kevin Peterson, one-legged swat out with great elegance. It was lovely stuff, and you expected to see him take off and fly into the sunset after playing that shot.
Yeah, and I loved hearing him through the stump mic, that roar that you just love when a player has had to concentrate for so many hours and they can let out a bit of emotion. It was absolutely wonderful. Another bit that I like today in terms of Hall of Fame actually comes, I want to put the Sky director in the Hall of Fame. I'm not sure if you caught this bit on your coverage, Geoff, but where Joe Root was signalling that he wanted to make a bowling change, and there was this byplay through the over, where a quiet over where they were cutting from Root to Broad, from Root to Anderson, and the bowlers clearly weren't looking at their captain. They didn't necessarily want a bowler. It certainly didn't look that way. And then he finally got James Anderson's attention. He kind of shrugged his shoulders and kind of said, "Oh, what, me?" It was just a brilliant bit of directing and brought to life an interesting exchange between the captain Root and his 2 senior fast bowlers. So whoever was directing the coverage for Sky today, they're in our Hall of Fame.
I could add in another moment from that where on commentary Viv Richards came up, as is contractually obliged to happen at least 3 times a day. As soon as Viv Richards was mentioned, the director cut to a picture on the wall somewhere of Viv Richards. I mean, that's amazing knowledge of the ground, to be like, I know exactly where the Viv Richards photo is, and the camera operator has to get some credit there as well. So so all right, fine. Let's have it go, rather than Devon Conway doubling up. Let's have it go to the TV director for their coverage. I think that's all we have to cover on the Final Word Daily today. We're going to be doing this test match and then seeing how it goes. We like to keep things casual here on the channel. If you like the show, you can check out our podcast feed as well. Plenty of other videos and audio on the audio-only podcast feed too. You can support the show at patreon.com, and you can get a sweet discount on Woodstock cricket gear with the code in the description below. We'll be back tomorrow. See you then.